So welcome to PSAN's fifth webinar of the school year. Today's topic is called More Time for Them, How Administrators Can Transform Leading and Learning Using AI. And today's webinar will be presented by Matthew Clark and Adam Hinton. And I had the pleasure of having both of these educators in my ILA module a few years back when we were both, when I was in an administrative role, but working in the ILA field as well. And it warms my heart to have them both present today. Matthew made the mistake of wandering up to me at the PSANS conference in October and told me how he was using ChatGPT in his work as principal. And then when I contacted him, he said that all came about with his connection with Adam. So this is the duo that will be presenting today. So I will now pass the screen over to the two of you. You can introduce yourselves with your roles and where you are and how you got connected in this wonderful work of AI.
Yeah, so I'll kind of get started. I'll just kind of give a little backstory to that. My name is Matthew Clark, and I'm at Dr. W.A. McLeod School in Middleton. So we have a pre-primary to grade 8 school, and we have about 520 kids. So that's kind of where I reside. So kind of how I got connected with Adam. I've known Adam for a while, and he's been a great support. He's been in a number of roles. I'll let him kind of introduce himself in a moment. But kind of how I got started with AI and ChatGPT was through him. So it kind of snowballed a little bit. So Karen had kind of asked me to do this, and I said, well, really, you need to get Adam on board. He's really the guy who knows about this. So that's kind of my role. And like Karen said, I took a course from Karen in the ILA a few years ago now. So it's been great to come full circle.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And my name's Adam Hinton. I'm a literacy consultant currently within CCRCE, and I've worked in the SSP world before, as well as worked in technology integration. And I think I started collaborating with Matt a lot on AI this year as an offshoot of some work that began last year in supporting teachers. And a lot of this large language model generative software started to appear about November last year, and teachers quickly realized that they were able to do lots of tasks that used to be pretty time consuming in a quick amount of time. And as I started supporting principals a lot in my role this year, we started thinking about some ways that could be used to leverage administrators some of their tasks and hopefully make some of your work more efficient and more comprehensive, and do some things that you couldn't previously do. So that's kind of how we get started on this ball rolling.
Yeah, so like Karen said, this kind of conversation started at the October conference day, and we were there for Principal Capelli, and I was showing her some things I was doing on there with some student forum work and student voice, and just summarizing some of that information into usable data that I could put out to teachers. So she was kind of interested. So when she reached out, it was great to have this opportunity, and I kind of pulled Adam along. So kind of how this is going to go is Adam's going to kind of go through the general presentation. I had actually asked Adam to do a session with us earlier in the year with some of my other principal colleagues for a shared PD session that we were doing, and he didn't have a chance to make it. So he allowed me to have access to the presentation, and I went through it with a number of our teachers here, and they really liked it. So that kind of got the ball rolling. And it just, like Adam said, it's kind of a really useful tool that you can use, and More Time for Them is a really great title, because it really can do some tasks very quickly that I'm sure that we could all get there if we had the time and the resources to do, but it can really do it for you. So Adam's going to kind of go through some of the nuts and bolts of how the programs can work, and some of the background information of where it came from, and how it can be used, and some of the logistics of it. And then I've included, or Adam's included, a number of links to my actual ChatGPT that I use, with just some examples of things that I've put into and kind of use in staff meetings or newsletters or things like that. So I'll kind of hand it over to Adam, and he can kind of go through that presentation, and then we'll kind of walk through some examples of how you can use. And then, like Karen said at the end, if you have any questions that you want to ask either Adam or I, you can certainly feel free to do so.
Okay, so I'll just jump in. I guess maybe a way that I'll start this is I was at a principals meeting yesterday. I spend a lot of time talking and supporting administrators, and I'm always a little bit in awe of how many things are going on an administrator's plate. And there's so many things to constantly balance with food provision and incident reports and managing all kinds of things with SAC and staffing and PD and finding subs. There's so many things going on all the time. So my hope is that through this session today, you've got your imagination running a little bit. This is a very imaginative tool. If you can kind of think of something, there's a lot of potential, and hopefully your gears will be moving today as we're talking about some of the potential of what you can do with this with the software. And I'll sort of put it out to you now. If you've ever and this is just kind of a question out into the world. Like, if you've ever had to have a difficult conversation with a parent or a teacher or a student, and walked away from it and wished that you had your thoughts sort of more organized, or you had said something and you missed out, or there was details you didn't know. If you've ever wanted really, really good research at your fingertips, but you didn't have the time to go hunting for it, if you've ever wanted to organize PD that felt really engaging and meaningful for your staff, if you ever wanted to host a parent session that they were able to take something really powerful away from, but you had trouble kind of putting it together, this generative AI software can pull ideas together that you can pick and choose from in a matter of moments. And it allows you the ability to refine your ideas and your thinking very, very quickly by having an ongoing conversation. So that's what these tools allow for the possibility of. So in starting this conversation off, I think it's really important to imagine this as having your own personal assistant that knows you, that understands you, that has no limitations on time or memory or energy. Lots and stuff can be done in a very short period of time. That's kind of where we're coming from with these tools. That's why the world is very excited about generative AI right now, and every single industry is rushing to adapt AI tools into its inner working. There's obviously fears, there's ethical concerns, there's issues with this technology becoming too advanced and too powerful. But in the meantime, I think that we can think about these ways to leverage these tools for learning and to make our jobs more efficient, and to support students and the teachers that we work with and the families we work with in a more robust way. And we're already seeing some pretty transformative stuff. And anyone that's on here that's used any of this, there's some pretty big things that you can do. A couple things that I'll mention just to start. As I said before, there is a range of ethical concerns with the use of AI. This isn't a session about student use cases of these AI tools. This is a session that's more related to professional staff, administrator, teacher uses of the AI tools. At this time, there is a provincial team that has met a few times this year to talk about AI uses and the implications of that in Nova Scotian schools. At this time, none of the software we're talking about is approved for individual student use. Those conversations, I'm sure, are ongoing. But all of these tools are available and accessible by teachers. And things I'll show today, they all have a free access point. Some of them are completely free. Some of them have premium tiers, but they are all accessible and usable as of this moment. The EECD does support educators in using and exploring these tools. We still are bound by privacy laws restricting us from using personal identifiable information. So, putting in any student data, anything that attaches their name, addresses, anything like that, that's not what this session is about putting the personal information in. We're still under strict privacy rules around that. And there is a lot of debates about AI. This is kind of a way to consider how we can use this tool to support our professional work, but it's not really about kind of the broader ethics of it, of which there are many discussions. I kind of preface all this because it's a big topic with lots of different sides, but this is a productivity and professionalism session.
I just want to add on. Oh, no, go ahead.
No.
I was just going to add on to that. I just kind of to think about as Adam goes through here. One of the things that I really think about when I'm using it is kind of a tool that it kind of puts out, more than you put in, but it's not something that you can just put in and then copy and paste it and go and just use it. So just kind of think about that as the presentation goes. It's a tool to use, and you just have to kind of make sure that you're getting out what you're looking for by the end of it. I wouldn't suggest kind of just plugging some things in and then drag and dropping it somewhere else without really kind of proofing it. And I'm sure that you'll kind of get into that, Adam, but it's something to kind of think about as we go.
Yeah. So essentially how this will flow is we'll sort of talk about the advent of AI in schools and the tools and the ways educators and admin are using them. We'll talk about how some of the common tasks that the software can be used for. I'm going to highlight two emergent skills that come along with using generative software. One is the skill of promptology, and the other is of curation, which is its counterbalance. And then we will kind of take a look at some ways that this actually gets carried out, talk about some examples. I'll talk about some teacher and some administrator use cases. So I posed this out here, and I know and you can feel free to chime in, but I guess I asked this to our principals right before the March break in schools of why I put it out there. What do you wish that you could get to do more of as an administrator? And I don't know if anybody wants to share, but I can tell you what the most common answer is whenever I've asked principals this. So what principals always say to me, and Matt, you can tell me if this is true. They say, I try to get into the classroom and I try to support teachers as much as I can and try to be with students as much as I can. I wish that I could have more of that. I wish that I could, I do some instructional leadership. I support my school in using principles of instructional leadership, but I wish I could do even more of it. But there's many tasks that I'm burdened with in the run of a day. So as we go through this, like I said, my hope is that your imaginative juices are flowing a little bit on some things that maybe you do in your daily routines, in your professional life that may be slightly offset to give you a little bit more room or more breathing room in supporting your students and your staff.
Yeah,
so,
we're literally talking about that just to kind of answer the question. If people don't pop out, I mean, I'm sure that you remember in Karen Wood in the ILA, we talk a lot about John Hattie's research on what actually makes differences in student learning. And a lot of the ones that have high correlations are not the things that we get to do on such a regular basis that we would like, because of the tasks and the fire code things that we have to do, and doing the incident reports that follow and getting pulled here and there. So that's really how I got into that. So I know that probably a lot of principals are thinking that. So I'll just say it out loud to really drive that point home.
Yeah, I sit at the principal's meeting, we sit at lunch, and I'm always in awe of just kind of the above and beyond and how many tasks are set at your feet. It's a big job. So generative AI is important. It is going to be a transformative tool in teaching, learning, and administration. We have stories and cases of countries that are far ahead. Finland's always very far ahead of us in education, but they're very far ahead. They have their own homegrown AI software tool that they use for teachers and learning and understanding their students and understanding how to best support their work. China has a number of schools that do very advanced work in supporting teacher and administrative tasks and using AI. But this tool, it's still in its infancy, but it will evolve pretty dramatically over the next decade. In the 1 year that ChatGPT has evolved, which is the largest AI software tool right now, I used to use it almost as a search bar and type things in. The way that I use ChatGPT now, I was driving, for example, today to school. I was going to talk to them about data collection in relation to their work with reading. And I was having a conversation with ChatGPT using my phone in my car, and it was like I was talking to a real person back and forth. It was a female voice, and she was speaking to me, and I felt like I was on the phone with somebody who was helping me scaffold my thinking and think about my best ways to support. And I was asking it things like, well, what happens if the teachers are concerned about this? Or do you anticipate any other problems coming up based on the topic that we're talking about right now? So it felt like I was talking to another human with this software. That's how quickly this has evolved. That was just released a few months ago, the ability to speak and converse with these tools. In a role where time is a premium commodity, any and all tools which can decrease medial tasks or help digest complex information only support students. I know sometimes in your roles, and sometimes I'm responsible for this, we pass on a very large or complex new document or policy or procedure to administrators, and we say, make this known by next week, please. And it might be a lot to digest, or you want to wrap your head around it, or you want to get the gist of it. With the software, you can upload files. You can have it summarize them for you, give you key points, provide a list of questions or concerns. All kinds of things like that can be done. So it can help you digest information, but it also can help you if you have a problem of practice or something you want to figure out or solve. You can ask these tools or start having a conversation with them and start whittling away at the problem. So I really like the metaphor of the personal assistant, the tireless personal assistant, who is, if you think about, you're talking to something that is drawing from a deep well of human knowledge, millions and millions and millions of data points with very, very advanced logic. It can completely understand what you're saying, and it's able to respond and then adjust as needed. And it's tireless. It doesn't mean that it's wise. You still need to bring the wisdom to this, but it's very, very smart. If you're talking to it, you're talking to a very smart teacher, a very smart administrator, a very smart electrician, a very smart plumber, a very smart doctor, but you are still responsible for ensuring that what you get is good and there's wisdom. You're using your wisdom to get the information that you want. It's great for supporting individual students in time-intensive and complex work. Having an assistant that's intelligent, tireless, comprehensive, and detail-oriented can help you cut to the chase and support students more immediately. And we can extend that to staff as well. I had a really interesting conversation with an administrator who's building a PD session for March with their teachers. And we started talking about how he can use the tool. He wants to put on a staff PD for math, but he realizes that his staff are at different levels of expertise with the PD. So he wants to have one room that they go to for the more complex, if you kind of really, really have this under your belt and you want to do some advanced stuff, something for people who are still working with it, and something for his staff members who are brand new to the concept. And he's using AI to design this for him automatically so that he can have a differentiated PD experience for his staff. And a lot of the heavy lifting is going to the software. And I guess everybody benefits from having a personal. I've never had a personal assistant, but it kind of feels like I do, and it's it's a cool feeling. So that's kind of why this software is important. There's a great survey that came out just I think it was about last year. They survey teachers and how teachers spend their time, and this is a survey that is from McKinsey Global Teacher Student Survey. It's from teachers from Canada, Singapore, the United Kingdom, the United States, and they found that in an average 50-hour work week, 16 and a half hours was spent teaching students, 3.5 hours on behavior, socio-emotional skill development, 4.5 on coaching and advisement, but then 5 hours of the week were on administrative tasks, 3 hours on professional development, 6.5 hours on evaluation feedback, and 10.5 hours on prep. And what it added up to on average was only 49% of time was spent in direct interaction with students. I don't have a comprehensive data set for administrators, but I'd be shocked if you said that you were happy with the percentage of time that you're spending doing, mundane but important administrative tasks versus how much time you're spending with the humans in your building. And every principal I talk to wants to spend more time with the humans in their building. So hopefully there's some ideas that help support that today. So when talking about this software, and we'll if you've never used this before, we'll show you what this actually looks like in action and what the examples are. There are two core skills that I try to espouse to people who are using it. The first skill, it's the skill of promptology, and this is the skill of providing an AI model a series of requests or prompts with the intent of allowing the program to effectively create a task or materials best suited to your needs. So you are giving it a prompt, you're giving it a request, and you want it to be and it can be very long. Sometimes these prompts can be 400 or 500 words. There's also a shortcut that I'm going to show you when we actually open up the software. And if you take anything from today's session, I hope you take the little secret prompt that I'll show you in a little bit. But it's about having asking a request, refining your request, having a conversation, getting really good information. And the second skill is the skill of curation. So lots of information will be spit out at you no matter what you ask it. And you may get some really, really great information, but the ability to curate, to ensure that it's giving you what you want, to give a follow-up request. So sometimes, I used it to help me write a letter of recommendation a couple months ago. And I asked, I'd write a letter of recommendation for this person. Here's their skills. Here's what I see. Here's what I think about them. Can you make this sound good? And it just shot out just a very corny, cheesy, overly dramatic letter. And I said, hey, can you dial back a little bit on the emotion? This is a bit cheesy. And that's what I said to it. And it said, oh, no problem. And it cleaned it up and it made it sound a little bit more professional, less cheesy. So it'll listen to requests like that if you have the conversation. Sometimes you'll ask it for research or details or information about a topic, and the tools aren't 100% perfect. So you want to make sure that the information you're getting is good. You want to make sure that it's actually telling you things that you think that you need. And the last bit of curation is there's some berry picking. So I was supporting a young woman actually this morning, and she's doing her training to be a corrections officer, and she was reading a case study, and I was showing her like some of the different ways to use an AI tool to think about ideas on how she could respond to her case study or make her response a little bit better. And it shot out, about 2,000 words to us. And I said, okay, you don't need to consider all this. I want you to go berry picking and find some of the good pieces of information that match up with what you believe that you would do in this situation. So the prompting is important to get the information that you want, and the curation is good to ensure that what you have is what you're what you're looking for. So just as an example of a prompt, this is a prompt that we threw together. Normally, when you first start talking to these tools, you're going to start asking really basic questions like, can you help me design an engaging PD on building relationships with students? Can you help me, write an email to a parent that says this? But as you get better with the tool of promptology, you learn what to ask it, and you learn just how detailed you can be, and you'll learn that you can be very, very contextual. So this is an actual prompt here. So I wrote here, you're an expert educator in Nova Scotia. So I'm asking it to kind of pretend it's a person. Delivering a PL session on the Nova Scotia inclusive education policy found at this link. You create a session where teachers will reflect on their understanding of the policy, break into groups, and then co-develop ways to address guiding principles 4.4, 4.5, and 4.6 in their classroom. Design a series of engaging activities for educators, ways for them to action their work, and next steps moving forward. So that's just an example of a prompt. This is a PD session that I want it to do. And now what I'm going to do here is, can everyone see this on the screen? So I put that prompt in, and here's my secret prompt that I put into everything to make it better. I always start the prompts that I want good information from by saying this. I say, rate this prompt from 1 to 10 and rewrite it as a 10. And what I'm telling the software to do is rate what I want you to do and make it better for you and how you organize information. So it can take a really basic idea, tell me how to, solve this problem, rate that out of 10 and rewrite the prompt as an even better prompt. And sometimes it'll humble you really quickly. You think you had a good prompt. So that was my original prompt that I just shared with you. ChatGPT said, rating the prompt, I'd give it a 7. It's clear, specifies a goal, but it could benefit from being more engaging, specific, and structured to ensure clarity and motivation for the task at hand. Here's the rewritten prompt. So it wrote this all for me. It starts contextualizing what it is that I want to do, and it starts thinking about a PD session and detailing it for me. And I can break out and I can ask any deeper questions about this. And the first thing I saw when it started making this, and you probably see this right now, is, wow, it's making hours of PD. And that's not, I don't want to have a 7-hour PD session on the inclusive education policy. So as my follow-up, I said, this is great, but we've only got an hour and a half. Can you revise your times to fit this? Also, what are some interesting anecdotes or facts that I could say to help engage my teachers? Can you give me a compelling statistic about inclusive practices and how they improve student well-being or achievement? And then again, it contextualizes what you say. It gives me a really detailed answer, but then it says to frame this statistic in an engaging way for your teachers, you could say, and then it gives me a quote, imagine a classroom where every student, regardless of their abilities, disabilities, not only learns together, but thrives together. So it's giving me, I would never use all of the stuff that it's giving me, but it's giving me lots of ideas. It's giving me a sense of direction. It's giving me a path by which to start building my PD. It's giving me things that I can cherry pick and then use in service of what I'm trying to do with my staff in this context. And then maybe, do you want to talk about something? Like I've got a bunch of your examples up here, Matt. Did you want to talk about some of your examples?
Yeah, I sure can. So do you want to just click on that courage message one? So you can really see, I don't know if you have the whole thing or not there, or if you would like it to or not, but this is really kind of how I started with this. So when we went to the October conference and I was talking to Karen about this, one of my big takeaways from the session was he said that when you're in a school and if you want your presence felt, you need to address the school and you need to be kind of the first on the announcements in the morning and not just say today is day one and we have intramurals and there's a meeting at lunch for this group. he said you have to kind of address some things. So we have in our school, we do virtues of the month, and they're based on the seven grandfather teachings. And so each month kind of goes through wisdom or honesty or humility. So I really wanted to kind of use this, and this was kind of my first jab at this, is to say, like, I would like a message of this every day, so that I can really do that at the start of the day, to say this is important to me as a principal of the school, and it should be important to the students in the school. So I just kind of said this. I kind of had talked to you about how to use some of those prompts and things. So I said, I'm a principal of a middle school. We do this virtues program, and it aligns with the seven grandfather teachings of the Mi'kmaq people. Tell me what this could look like. I want a daily schedule of a principal message. And like you said, I kind of felt when I first kind of started using this, I almost had a guilt of it's not authentic. It's not exactly kind of how I would phrase it or how I would think about it. So I really had to think about that curation piece that you're talking about, to say, is this something that I would actually say? And then I kind of got over that a little bit, because I started using it almost like you said, and going back and forth and saying, this is not how I would say this. This is too long, or this is too short, or I really like to do it in a different way. So as it came out, you go back and forth with it, and it gave me some really great things that I could do. And it's one of those things where I could have gotten to this message myself if I'd sat down and went through all of the information, and I could have probably pieced it together. But this just kind of really pulled it all together very quickly, and then I can go back and forth with it to see if that's actually what I wanted to say. So can you just scroll down? Is there more to it of what it came out? So I said I kind of want to put up a bulletin board of things, so that when people walk by, they kind of see it in the hallways and things. And so it kind of said, here's some daily messages that we could do. So this was right after the session. So the very first one that came out was, good morning. Remember, courage isn't always about doing grand gestures. Sometimes it's just about doing the right thing. And it literally put one out for every day of the month. So I'm not going to go and read through each one, but if you want to kind of go down a little farther, I think I have a different prompt that I put in. And you'll have to go. It gave the whole month. They said, here's the days in the month. And that one little message wasn't quite long enough. I wanted a little bit something more, maybe kind of 30 seconds to a minute, that really put some stuff out. So I just said, like, can you make it a little bit longer? They will end morning announcement each morning, and I want them to have a profound impact on students. So it starts building in more things that I want to do. So I'm not going to go through the whole document like this, but I just wanted to kind of show some of these things that I'm actually using it for every day, to kind of save that time. So I could have written a message for each day. It probably would have taken me a few hours to go through and get it all. And then if you kind of scroll down even farther, like way down, Adam. And so then I started to say, I don't just want this to be a message about this. I also want to start incorporating pieces of our behavior matrix in. So I said, this goes back and forth for a long time, because I'm using it almost daily now, this particular message. So I said, well, I drag and dropped our behavior matrix in, and I said, I don't just want it to say a message about courage. I wanted to say a message about courage, and how that ties directly into our behavioral expectations for how we expect students to work in the classroom. So it starts to just pick out those things, and it says, courage means in the classroom, if you see somebody doing something that they shouldn't be doing, kind of standing up in a respectful way, or different things. And it really just kind of teases out a lot of those different things. So I don't want to go through each one of these, but and I don't know where you are in your presentation, but you can click over maybe to that next one about teaching standards. This one I felt really interested about. So I kind of thought I was doing a lot of work with Clever and teacher evaluations and how I could use ChatGPT to kind of summarize some of these things and do goals. When I talk to my teachers about using Clever in schools, I always say like the work is in the classroom. It's not in taking time to create goals, and it's not in time in trying to word strategies effectively. It's what you're doing with those. So I went through, and you can just kind of scroll down as I go, Adam, and I'll speak to it. But I said, this is some great stuff. I did the same thing. I dragged and dropped the teaching standards in just right from the document. And I said, I need just some basic goals and strategies that teachers can use so that they say, this is actually what I'm working on in my class, and I can plug that in. And I kind of did some curation, and this is kind of what it came out. So standard number 1 says teachers know, respond to, engage all students. So I said, if I'm walking into a classroom like that, and I know that we have some walkthrough documents and things that are available at CCRCE that we can kind of reference, but I said, if I walk into somebody's classroom and I really want to see what they're doing to respond and know and engage all students, what are some of those main things? And this is what it came out with. You want to cultivate cultural awareness. You want to incorporate diverse perspectives. You want to adapt teaching strategies. And what I really liked about this is it's pulling directly from the teaching standards document. So it's something that they're actually using, and it's not just something that is kind of out there from thin air. I found that I really like Clever, and like Adam, I have a background in doing student success planning and goals and strategies and how to do those things. And when teachers can use a tool like this, and what I did is I used this and I curated a document and I sent it out to all my staff. And I said, if you do not have a goal in your Clever now, and kind of we go kind of in the SSP model where I kind of want them to have a goal in literacy and mathematics and well-being. And this just lines right up with that. If you don't have a goal already in cultivating a culturally proficient classroom, here's some stuff that you can do. And they can drag and drop it into their Clever, and I can actually go in and say, I know that you use this document. What are you doing with it, and what can I look for? So it's really kind of saved a lot of time, and I can just walk in and everybody has this. So we're kind of all on the same page with it too. You can click on the newsletter one next, Adam, and I'll just kind of, if people want to ask more or see more, they can. This was just really some simple stuff that I really wanted to do quickly and get out there. So I just said, we have an issue at our school, and I know a lot of people are going through this, where we're going through a ton of cups, and where they're forgetting to bring their water bottles, and we can't give these all out. So in our newsletter, we wanted to just put in something quickly. My admin assistant came up and said, you want me to put something in about this? And I said, sure. So I just typed this in, and I said, type me a reminder for P to 6 students to remember their water bottles, just 2 to 3 lines for a newsletter. And it just puts something out really well. And then I get down these kind of rabbit holes of how I can use this. So I wanted to do a newsletter page for a principal message focused on the activities that we did for Black History Month. So it just really starts, and this is what it puts out. And this is what I meant. Like I obviously just not just copy and paste this into my newsletter and away it went, but it's a really great tool to say, this is what we did. And then you can actually go back and say, here's some of the activities that we did. You can put that in. You can kind of edit it and see what you want it to say. You can put in other things that align with what you're trying to get. And it's just been a really useful tool for some of those things like that. So I can keep kind of providing examples, but Adam, maybe you want to move on, and we can do that the rest of the session, and then we can kind of go back to some of them at the end, and if people kind of want some more examples.
Yeah, and I think this is a nice time. Like I'll show you the actual interface here. So this, when you log in, this is what you see on ChatGPT. I'll give you a couple of caveats. Right now, I'm running GPT-4. This comes from the paid version of ChatGPT. The free version runs what's called GPT 3.5, which I can switch to at any time. GPT 3.5 will draw on any information in the free version up to 2020, and it doesn't allow you to use some of their extension applications as well as upload files. However, I would tell you that we have supported a number of administrators in accessing the premium version. And we've had a lot of conversations here about the utility of getting that. However, 3.5 is what does support in a lot of these tasks and a lot of the stuff that Matt was just talking about as well. It will always have a couple little recommendation pieces here, but essentially down here, it's just like a chat box. On 4, I can also upload up to 10 files. So if you are looking to design something around the teaching standards, the inclusive education policy, clever goals, a new literacy document, you can upload all of those. It will read all of them in a matter of moments, and it will contextualize its answer based on its understanding of those documents. But it's reading very, very quickly. So, and I liked Matt's examples a lot, because a lot of the things that, administrators are trying to do or put a little bit more shine or put a little bit more detail on, but because there's so many things to counterbalance in the day, so many tasks and so many responsibilities, it's sometimes I think it feels hard to do anything really, really well. So you're always administrators are always wanting to think that they could do more. So I like to contextualize it again. It's like an assistant. If you were a lawyer or a politician or an executive at a company, you might have an assistant or a paralegal or somebody that helps find your research and frame ideas for you. You're still the leader, you're still the person on stage, you're still the person conveying the ideas and making the final decisions. But a lot of this assistant work can be offloaded here through these conversations, and it can help you do things in better ways. So I'm just going to type a quick little message in here. So for example, I could say, could you make a message, and you don't have to be a great speller, it will account for all of that. Could you make a message for teachers reminding them to reach out to any families of students who may be struggling on report cards prior to report card distribution, so that there are no surprises. I'm going to hit enter. It is thinking, contextualizing, and responding immediately. And it's going to give me a really nice detailed letter here. You may look at this and say, I don't like all of this. This is a little bit too wordy. This is a little bit too like warm regards, a little too much. Okay, so again, you can say this is a little too detailed and a bit cheesy. And you make it more simple to the point. And again, it never argues with you. It will just try to do its best. Sometimes I've even read articles about how if you encourage it and say, I think you can do better, or I know you can get it right this time, it will actually work harder on your request. So again, it's simplified this. I'm looking at this here. Okay, I like this. I'm going to copy it, make a couple quick edits, send it out. But I've done that in less than 2 minutes. And now I can move on to another task that requires more attention. I can check that off much quicker. This is what I wanted to happen. This is the result that I wanted to land at. But I just, sometimes if you're writing something at the end of the day and you've been dealing with a parent issue, with a student issue, you've been dealing with all kinds of things that have popped up. At the end of the day, you don't always have the mental ability to be really articulate in your writing. This can help you overcome some of those challenges. But it's very, very quick. This is GPT. It does save all of your conversations. You can see here I've had conversations. This is the one I was talking about the inmate, the corrections officer this morning, improving school attendance. We were talking. I was in a conversation with administrators yesterday we were talking about attendance issues. I said, well, let's find out the best research on schools around the world that have turned around attendance issues. So we immediately went to this add-on here of GPT. It searched through 600 million research papers and found me the best research and evidence for schools that turned around attendance issues and what they did. But it will save all of your chats. That's ChatGPT. Works on a browser. Log in with Google. Has a free and paid version. Works on your phone as well. The other two, which are education centric, there's one here which hopefully will load up. This is this is designed for educators. It's called Magic School AI. It does a lot of things, and there's a lot on the screen here. It does a lot of things that it thinks like a teacher, but I have a number of things starred here that are also of use to administrators. There is an email a family option. There is a teacher observation that generates strengths and suggestions and next steps for teachers based on a classroom observation. There's a class newsletter generator. This is all through generative AI. There's a behavior intervention plan, team builder, and icebreaker for personal in-person meetings, letter of recommendation, support for individualized programming generator, email responder. The principals that I shared this with a couple weeks ago were really excited about this because they confess that sometimes the emails that they've sent to some people don't come off as they wanted to, and this made it a little bit more soft. But there's lots and lots of accommodation suggestions. So this is a AI tool, Magic School, designed for educators and educational settings and to think and draw from educational resources. There's even a little chatbot on here named Raina. You can go to Raina and she says, I'm your AI instructional coach. You can ask questions related to best practices in teaching or work in your school building. Feel free to ask me ideas for your classroom, researches on best practices, behavior management, and any general advice. And it will speak to you, provide you resources, provide you research, provide you strategies, give you ideas to turn things around in a matter of moments. The other one is called eduaid.ai. Again, designed for educational situations, lets you design units of study, rubrics, unit plans, engagement activities, assessment measures very quickly. And what I like about it here is I'm going to make a little lesson in social studies, and I'll call it Trenches in World War I. There's a little enhance button here because I wasn't very articulate. And it is going to, analyze the impact of trench warfare on military strategy, soldiers' experience during World War I. It tidies it up the thinking for me. And then I can click add to workspace, and it is going to give me a lesson, a prior knowledge, cues for student learning, direct instruction strategies, team-based activities, formative assessment measures, all in a matter of moments based on what I asked for. And then down here, there's, if you go to the NSLC and you go to buy a bottle of wine, on the little sticker, it will give you some pairings, like, this pairs well with fruit, or this pairs well with chocolate. There's little pairings down here. So I could pair this lesson with an anchor chart, pair this with a reading comprehension assignment. At the click of a button, it's going to give me lots of ideas. So if you have I know I've talked to principals who they have a teacher out, there's no sub-plan, they need a quick idea, they have a student who is working in with them, they don't have a work package for them, they need something, they need to be contextualized, they want it to be high interest. You can generate these things in a matter of moments. I have a student that I'm working with, they're really interested in Toronto Maple Leafs, they have a dog named Jack, they really like skateboarding. Create me a list of math, literacy, science activities for a student at this grade level to work on throughout the day. It will contextualize all of that immediately. So it can do things. The reason why people are very excited about this is that it can do things in such a speed, and it'll bring ideas to life in such an immediacy that you can draw from them very, very quickly. So it really is it really goes to the limits of your imagination with these tools. And all of these will share out, I know Karen will share out the link to the presentation. We'll have the link to Matt's examples, as well as the link to all of these resources and sites. Aside from that, I've kind of gone through the exemplars and all of the links here, but that's really the gist of the spiel of AI and the potential of AI. My hope is that as we're going through all of this, you had the wheels turning, and you were thinking of some ways that you could possibly use it for a current problem or upcoming challenge that you're focused on in a way that this could support you. Or if there's any interesting ways that educators on here are using the tools, I'm always interested in hearing those ideas as well.
Thanks so much, Adam and Matt. We are down now to very close. We got 5 minutes left. Before I shut recording off, I want to extend my sincere thank you to both of you for putting so much work into this, and with so many real examples makes it so helpful. So not only will we be able to provide the recording of today's webinar, but for those of you that are registered, I will be emailing out the presentation so that you will have the links as well. And that will be a big help for everyone. So I'm going to stop the recording, and we'll have a moment if anybody has a question that they'd like to ask, they'll get a chance. So we'll do that right now.